Good afternoon, and welcome to Community Spotlight. I'm Carol Long, and we're going to come down to City Hall today. I'm just thrilled because I get to sit in actually a councilman's chair, but we're going to be talking with our mayor, Mayor Edwards, and so we hope you enjoy the program. Maybe we're going to understand a little bit more how the city works and who's behind the city's government. We know that we have a mayor, and I think he maybe have had another job or two. So we're going to find out some things. Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you, Carol. It's a pleasure being here with you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to start out with something, and I told you that I was going to do this. When we talked about doing this series, you asked me a question, and I've thought about that quite a bit. And the question was, if I were out in some other area, another state, or someplace in the country, and a person would say, well, where are you from? What would I say?
Right.
Would I say West Virginia? Would I say Buckhannon? Would I say Tennerton, where I live? What would I say?
Right.
And usually the answer is Buckhannon.
Buckhannon.
You know, Buckhannon is just home.
It is.
It's home.
Mhm.
And the surrounding areas, the communities, and we are in Upshur. Sometimes I'll say Buckhannon, Upshur County, West Virginia, but
Right.
Buckhannon's the answer, and I think that's what most people would say.
Yes.
So some of the things that I thought we'd talk about today is, first of all, how did you become mayor? Because if folks went to an election, they certainly did not vote for you as mayor.
Right.
So how did you get this position?
Well, I'll tell you what. It was by circumstance, really. Now, I ran as the city recorder in 2014, which would have made me go through 2018.
Okay.
Now, with the city charter, the city recorder is like the vice president. The city recorder attends all of the meetings of the utilities, and is pretty much a shadow for the mayor on any business decisions that are made within the city. The city recorder's obligation is to make sure they're documented, written, and put away so that anytime we need to research something, it's there and we can look back at it. In the charter, if something were to happen to the mayor, and this isn't the first time this has happened.
No, it isn't the first time.
The last time this happened was with unfortunate demise of or passing of Binky Poundstone, and Nancy Shobe, as the city recorder, became mayor. And that's exactly the same process that put me in this position. It was only 3 months into the recorder's position that Mayor Davidson, the previous mayor, had gotten some news about his health, and I was so appreciative when he came to me and said, now Rick, you understand the charter. If there's a possibility I may need to resign, we're going to need you to be mayor. Are you ready? And I'm like, no, I was not ready.
No one is really at the time they were asked like
But
that.
he was so reassuring to me. He said that, Rick, when you came in, you jumped right into the recorder's position, and I had done a lot of the recorder type jobs before, so it was really not that hard. But to take the responsibility on of a city and to do what the citizens and residents want you to do on their behalf is a major responsibility that it takes a strong person to be able to handle. There's a lot of stress in the strong mayor form of government. Well, when he asked me, I felt very honored that he expressed that to me, and he thought I could do a good job. He gave me 2 weeks to think about it. Sure enough, 2 weeks later, he goes, Rick, I am going to resign, and for health reasons, and I need you to stand up and take it. So I did, and hence.
I hear good comments.
Well,
I think you're doing
that.
a good job.
I'm doing my best, Carol. I really am
I
doing
think
my best.
It's really important to be able to see how your city operates. And I would encourage folks to come to a city council meeting.
Absolutely.
That doesn't necessarily mean that you live in the city
No.
circumference or
That's
city
right.
proper, If
Yeah.
you're out and about in the community, there's a lot of things that
Yes.
still touch upon the city.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important that people show their interest in their city as well as their county government. We should have a voice, and I think that's one of the positive things, and I'm not saying that our former mayor did not do that,
Right.
but I think it's a positive thing that you're having a lot of input, and you want input from the community, to the point we're going to talk about this for just a moment. Is that the first town hall meeting that you've had since you became mayor, the one you had last night?
Yes, last night we had our very first town hall meeting. In fact, it's the first town hall meeting that city council has had in over 10 years.
That's
where they've
awesome.
allowed where council didn't meet in the chambers and went out and into the community, in this case at the American Legion Hall. We tried a different day, we tried a different time, thinking, okay, maybe that'll get more people to, encourage more people to come to our meetings. And it was a fantastic turnout. The people that were there were happy that they had a different venue to come to as opposed to Thursday nights at 7 o'clock in City Hall.
It's a little structured.
It's
you
very
you have
structured.
to be structured
Right.
when you're doing all the agenda that you do for the
The
city.
city business, yes, that and it's very structured on how you do that. But it was a relief last night to allow the citizens just to tell city council what they want or how they feel the city or their representatives should lead them through.
Can you share with us a couple, 3 topics that you all
Sure.
talked about?
On our agenda now, anytime the city council gets together, we have to have an announcement of a date. It's called the Sunshine Law.
Right.
We have to have an agenda, and we have to follow that so that the citizens know we're doing proper by them in any business. Last night's agenda, we had the comprehensive B&O tax, business and occupancy tax, and we were discussing how we currently don't have a comprehensive plan. There's 3 different areas that aren't being taxed, which is unusual for West Virginia. We're one of 2 cities that don't use comprehensive B&O. The next thing we talked about were fire and police fees and
That's
the
been a
history
real
behind
issue,
it.
yeah.
Yes, and how the history of it since 1980s when it was initiated, and how the fee hasn't changed, but yet all the expenses related to police and fire have just been astronomical. The third thing we talked about was the automatic license plate reader. And for those who aren't aware, or we call it the ALPR, the city of Buckhannon has a cruiser that drives around and can take a picture or snapshot of your license plate, and really it's to be able to identify somebody from another state or another county. If they've committed a felony or in some way dangerous, they can catch it immediately. There are issues, though, with privacy that have come up with that, and so we discussed that, and that was quite a lively debate last night.
And for those who might watch this before or after, that particular meeting is on Channel 3. Just look
Yes.
at your schedule in the paper and tune in, and you'll get to see it.
That's right.
And I didn't get to attend it last night, so now, and I think it's maybe going to be on this evening, but I'm
That's
sure
right.
it'll be on several more times.
Oh yeah. We get a lot of more viewings of that, and it's a great opportunity from Channel 3 for people who can't get out to the meetings or have other obligations to be able to see that on Channel 3, as well as on YouTube.
Yes, I think that's an important part. Can you tell us, Rodney? Rodney is here filming. Can you tell us what the numbers are to get into YouTube with Channel 3?
It's ch3ondemand.com.
ch3ondemand.com.
Yep.
So if you have family that doesn't have cable system,
Right.
give them those numbers and letters, and they can go into it and watch it on YouTube.
Absolutely.
And you can pull off a lot of different things that are going on.
Yeah, and they have previous council meetings
Right.
and county commission. In fact, it's funny you mentioned that because my daughter, I just turned her on to it because she had to do a report on local government. And I said, well, here's an opportunity. You can just watch it on TV and see how it works. You didn't even have to come to the meeting. So there's a lot of great opportunities with that.
Well, we've talked about what your job is.
Yeah.
I want to know where you came from and what did you do that led you into this position?
Well, I'm going to make a 49-year history really short for
Okay.
you. I'm a military brat.
Okay.
My father came from Century, West Virginia, just on the other side of our border with
So you're
Barber
West
County.
Virginian then?
3rd generation. My father was. I'm 4th. Wasn't born here,
Okay.
but I was born in Fort Hood, Texas.
Oh,
But he left he graduated from Philip Barber High School and went straight into the military and enlisted.
oh
And that was during the Korean War.
Uh-huh.
That was late 50s.
Right.
And thought he would find his way in the world going through the military. Met my wife, my mother.
Your mother.
And I was born in Fort Hood, Texas in 1965. Now, having said that, as a military brat, and anybody you can sympathize with, you move a lot.
A lot.
A lot. So I lived all over pretty much the United States and even overseas. But my father retired at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, Texas in the mid-'80s. And that's where we ended up staying. I grew up in San Antonio from 1975 to 2000 before we came here. Very large city. When we moved there in the early 70s, it was primarily a military town, 4 air bases there. But by the time we left, there were over 1.5 million people in that
Oh
town.
my goodness.
It had grown so much, and it had become quite dangerous. No other way of putting it. To bring up a family, and at that point, my 3 daughters had been born and were just fixing to go into elementary school, and we just didn't like the environment and didn't feel safe there anymore. We were on our way to Pittsburgh to see her family, and we stopped here to see my father, and this is where he was living then.
Okay.
And we saw the family. Somebody offered me and my wife a job.
While you were here
While we
visiting?
were here.
Awesome.
And, we didn't want to be rude. We took a look at it. And once we got to meet the family and the residents here and got to feel the atmosphere and environment in Buchanan, you could not pry us away. There was no way we were leaving. The security that you feel here, the sense of family, the sense of community, it's just a tradition you don't find in the United States anymore.
You don't.
And we just embraced it, and the community embraced us. I'd heard so many times that, well, if you're not from here for generations, that here's the old saying I heard, if your grandfather's not buried out at Hebner Cemetery, then your name's not really anything yet.
Oh.
Well, I got to tell you, that's
That's
got
not
to be
true.
the most untrue thing.
I agree.
People were so open to me and allowing me doing things, and so I jumped right into the community. When we moved here in 2001, that was 14 years ago. Yeah, 13 years ago. Got right into the community. I tend to do that. I just jump into things. I worked with your daughter on the PTO at the academy.
Okay,
in intermediate. Was PTO president there for a couple years, and just from there, just shot off through the community and got involved in all kinds of fun
And
things.
you work a lot with children. I found that out, and I think that's really a
I
good
love
thing.
working with kids. Had I not gone into history as a history major, I was going to be a teacher. Unfortunately, I didn't. At the age that I was doing that, I didn't feel that I was appropriate enough to be. I was kind of a wild guy, and I didn't think I could express the good things to the kids. But any opportunity I get to work with kids now, I do. I really enjoy it very much.
What got you interested in actually working with the city government?
Well, through the organizations that I worked on, I was on the Upshur County Parks and Rec Board, Stockert Youth Center, and many others. And I saw how the city was actually the dynamic behind most of them. In a lot of ways, the city has to either help fund or be a participant in whatever organizations you are. Another great way was right behind that camera for 5 years.
A lot of people didn't know you worked right here in this room.
I did for 4 to 5 years here and at County Commission doing the meetings every Thursday there.
So you learned a lot about city council. I'm always talking to Dennis. He's filmed for a long time,
he can
and
tell you.
he's learned a lot about the
You do.
city council.
You get to understand the things that are going on. You get to understand the underlays of the different departments and how they work together. And being exposed for that long, it just seemed natural for me to be able to, to jump right into things, and I did. It's worked out well.
So you told us that your recorder's job would be up in 2018. Is
That's
that right?
correct, yes.
So how long are you mayor?
All right. So the next set of elections now, previous Mayor Davidson, his election would have been 2016.
Okay.
That's when he would have had been reelected. So I fulfill his term until that point. I think filing this year, or it'll be February of 2016 will be the
Okay.
starting of the
And
filing dates.
that election's in the summer, spring?
It'll be
fall?
spring.
Spring,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, I think it's in April, as I recall. And then, of course, they take office June 1, July 1.
July 1.
Keep in mind, this is a unique year now. There's only going to be 2 council members that are going to be retaining their seats.
It's very unusual.
Extremely.
I don't remember it ever happening before.
It's and it usually doesn't happen in most places. It would usually be a disaster to make that happen.
That's because they're staggered terms.
Exactly. In this case, Mary and I will be the only 2 council members that will stay on through 2016 as an elected official. Mr. Thomas, Mr. Pugh, Mrs. Kupari, and Mrs. Simons, all of their seats will be up, as well as the mayor's seat for election. So that's 5 new council members out of 7 you'll have.
And so if you would choose to, can you run again for the mayor's position?
Absolutely.
And if you do that, then does somebody else have to be elected as the recorder?
Yes, it gets a little more complicated as well. Yes, I have every opportunity to run for mayor if I so chose. or I can revert back to the recorder's
And
position.
you would stay there till 2018?
Exactly, fulfill what I had done
Okay.
before. What was the second part of that question?
Well, I said if you choose, you
Yeah.
could run for the
Right,
mayor's
yeah.
position, but you'd have to give up the recorder's
Yes.
position.
Right, and now, thank you. Now, let's just say I do run and I were to be elected mayor, then the council would appoint a recorder to fulfill till 2018, which would have been the rest of my
Oh,
term.
okay, so they can appoint one, it
That's
doesn't
right.
have to be an elected position.
Exactly, and that happened before as well. That happened with Mary Albaugh when
Right.
Nancy Shobe assumed the position
Mhm.
of mayor.
So you do have some new folks on, you might
Yeah.
just share with the folks that maybe have not been watching this, who your council members are,
Very good. Now, I'll go with our newest
okay?
council member who took the seat when Tom O'Neill resigned. He moved out of the city to Deer Park, which makes him no longer eligible to be a council
Correct,
member.
you have to live within the city.
Right. The council appointed Robin Riggs Simons.
But had she not run for the position
Yes.
of city council?
Yes.
So that's a pretty good move.
Well, yeah, and it was again a somewhat unique position that she'd only lost her election by one vote, and it was against Mr. O'Neill.
Okay?
So we could have argued about who we wanted to appoint, but it seemed pretty obvious if you lose by 1 point who the citizens wanted is into that seat besides Mr. O'Neill. So it was, of course, Mrs. Simons.
And I think it's nice for someone who actually says to everybody, I want to be on city council, to be considered before appointing someone that hasn't
Right.
even been interested in the position.
Absolutely, because you gotta have some sort of a background on how you feel or what position you fill within a council and what your role is in a council, particularly for your constituents.
Right.
And if you haven't been through the election process, you would know that a lot of citizens want to hear. They don't feel they've been heard, so they want the opportunity to be heard. They wouldn't know a lot of the other different issues that constituents have that we need to address.
So you have
So we
Mrs.
have
Simons.
Mrs. Simons, and then we have Mrs. Mary Albaugh, who was just elected in 2016.
But now didn't she serve as a substitute in
She
a
was a
position?
recorder.
Okay.
She served as a recorder for approximately 12, 16 months when Nancy fulfilled the mayor's position before.
So she had some experience
She
with
has
the
some
city.
experience,
which is
and
good.
she went through the whole election process, and a veteran, is very outspoken, and
Oh, I see her
She
many
does,
times. She comes to some of the things that I work with, and she comes in her uniform and is very, very interested in our veterans.
she is. She's very involved in our Memorial Day services, our 4th of July services, VFW, and all of that. So she brings a whole lot to the plate as well, and we appreciate her. Now, our other members have been on the council since 2014, a couple more than years than that. Mr. Pugh's been on since 2012. This will be 2016, yeah. Dave Thomas and Pam Kupari have been on council for almost 3 terms each. So they are our elder statesmen. They know the process very well, and they help the rest of council work through the things that we have to learn because, again, we're kind of new at it as well.
It seems to me like y'all are trying really hard to reach out to the community and say, look, we're here to serve you. You need to give us input, and
Yes.
we're willing to listen.
Yes.
And you're willing to go out and talk to folks.
Yes.
I mean, I see you many different places,
Yes.
just seeing how folks are getting
Yeah.
along and some of the different organizations that they're involved in.
Yes.
So I think that's important that people see our mayor out and about.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the councilman, I would give them credit for that as well.
Absolutely.
So I think
Absolutely.
that's important. As mayor, what is the one issue that you're most passionate about in governing as mayor?
That's a very good question, and it's almost a trick question for me because there's 2 things that I really want to
Well,
focus
we'll
on.
listen to
But
2.
number one, as the mayor, okay, my number one priority is for the citizens and for the employees of the city of Buchanan. As a strong mayor, the mayor is technically the chief operating or chief executive officer of the
True.
city. And it's my responsibility to make sure that our employees are taken care of. One of the best things and you might agree because of Burl, your previous husband, one of the best positions you can have and one that you feel most secure with is working within a city or a government. and you dedicate yourself to that. And our employees do a fantastic job.
They do.
And a lot of times you don't see them digging the holes or during the snowstorms, and they're there, but you don't really pay attention to them. And I think that it's my job to make sure that not only are they paid attention to and recognized, that they're taken care of financially, securely, and for their families.
And you are working on an issue there.
Yes, we are. And to me, that's my number one priority. Number two, though, is the safety of the citizens. I want to make sure that this city, through its employees, is doing everything that it can to keep you as a citizen, not even just in Tenderton, and
Right.
throughout Upshur County, safe in the best way that we can, particularly if you come to our town or you come into Buckhannon. That's my second most important priority. I love hearing what the citizens have to say. We can't always fix everything, it's
And
just
you
the way it
know,
goes.
you get two people in a room and they're not going to agree on everything.
Yes, for
But the fact that you can disagree agreeably is
Yes.
very important.
That is very
And I
important.
see that within this group. They're willing to listen, and even on the city council, sometimes you don't agree.
Right.
Yes, and the vote comes, and some vote one way and some the other. But never seems to make anybody angry. They realize that there's issues, and they have to do what they think is best on that issue.
And got to keep in mind they're each very different characters and
they
personalities.
Right,
And
right,
so we
right.
have to form to do what is the best for the citizens and for the city, and this council does that very well.
I think so too. What are some of the areas that you feel needs to be addressed that you haven't had the opportunity yet to work on?
I have actually jumped into quite a few things since my time is somewhat limited, as we discussed. There are some main things that I do want to get done. I feel that the infrastructure of the city has been somewhat not maintained. I don't want to say neglected because I can't say that, but it hasn't been properly maintained, from our street department to our water department, our sanitary department. I think that city council, and in my position as mayor, my number one priority from the business aspect is to make sure that our city is running properly and is well-oiled machine that it can be. And sometimes that means I have to look for new equipment. That means we have to rearrange things depending upon whatever the situation
Because
is.
budgets mean a lot.
It really does, and it just keeps going higher. It's not going down.
That's true.
So that is one of my main objectives: is the infrastructure, our streets, our safety, our downtown. We have worked so hard to revitalize our downtown, and you've got to agree that it looks great compared to.
I hear more comments on the flowers.
Oh, yeah,
I
definitely.
think that is a wonderful program that was started and has continued and has really beautified our area, and
It
people
has.
notice that when they come from other areas.
And they have full storefronts. We have some very unique shops downtown in our downtown. It's easy to walk. There's not a whole lot of distance there, so I think as well that's one of our main priorities. And overall, just I don't think grandiose plans, but we have a couple of things down the pike that we're looking at. A recreation complex
Be
we
awesome.
feel is needed here.
And do you have a location for that at this point?
Not an exact location. We do know we couldn't build it in Buckhannon, though, in the Buckhannon municipality, because there's no room. We need about 40 acres. So this will be a joint venture between the city, the county, and hopefully the Board of Education and other organizations to see a need, address it, plan it, and make it happen. Because really, if you want to attract young families to stay here and they have children or whatnot, you need a place to go. And nowadays, recreation is the big
That's true.
health and
That's
wellness and all of that that's involved is a big deal. So we want to help facilitate that, which will bring more people to Buckhannon and hopefully make them want to stay like we wanted to stay and not leave.
Well, in my work with some of the organizations that I have been involved with that bring visitors into Buckhannon,
Yes.
the one thing that you always hear from them, what a beautiful city you have with the beautiful flowers, and how friendly are the people.
Yes.
I mean, working with Strawberry Festival, there's been times when we've had really bad heat for the time of the festival. And these kids marching, some of them are not used to this from where they're coming from.
Right.
And I don't know how many times there have been people just along the parade route that'll say, well, come in, let me give you a glass of water.
That is,
You know, or sit down and rest a few minutes. If it's too hot, sit down in my yard. I don't care.
Try underneath this big tree.
So I think that's the fact that we are a friendly town.
Very
We're a
much so.
small town, but just recently we were selected as one of the top small cities in the whole United States, and that is just awesome.
One of the top 50.
Yeah, top
I think we
50.
were 47.
I
And
thought
when
it
you
was
think of that
42.
list- Was it 42?
I think it's
I thought it
42.
was 47, but
Well,
you may
it's
be
40
right.
something.
It's still, and to be the only West Virginia city
Right.
to be
The
represented.
only West Virginia city.
That says a lot. And it also says a lot about the citizens and residents and organizations that help make that. You couldn't do it, just the city couldn't do it by itself.
No, we're very much a volunteer area.
Very much so.
Yeah, and
Yes.
and that makes such a huge difference in any community that you're in. You know, it gets people to talk to one another, and if somebody's in distress, you know, I've seen folks who have, you know, it's been up on the board or in the paper, this family has burnout, could
Right.
you help?
Absolutely.
You know, how can you help?
Yep.
And the same thing when you have other emergencies, you just have an abundance of people who come out and say, well, what can I do to help?
Exactly. That is such a inspiring thing and a place to live. The environment that you live in, to have that, to know that you can be taken care of if something were to happen. If something were to happen to me, I feel so secure knowing that my wife and my kids would be embraced in the family and taken care of. We've got some fundraisers coming up now. Our fire department's involved in one with a child that has some diabetic issues and is going to the hospital back and forth. If somebody is diagnosed with cancer, all of a sudden you'll see the fundraising attempts
Right.
go up.
And then we've got,
supporting the
we have
families.
groups like Shriners that help the children.
Oh, yeah,
And,
right.
and a lot of these folks, and I mention that quite often in my association with the festival, this gives a lot of folks an opportunity to have a fundraiser. So you'll see people doing strawberry shortcake, and you'll see them doing various things.
Right.
And this happens, I think it's wonderful having the things at Jawbone.
Yeah.
These Festival Fridays are
Fridays.
just awesome.
They really
And I was reading, and it was an older magazine, it was talking about small communities. You know, they don't do anything together anymore, and I'm thinking, come to Buckhannon,
Right.
you know, because I see all ages,
Yes.
and they have a chance to get something to eat, something to drink, listen to some music, and just visit.
Old-fashioned park setting and
It's
everything.
awesome. It's awesome.
It really is.
I think we've learned that you're very interested in the community, and what are if somebody would ask you, what is the most important information that you would like to share with the citizens of Buckhannon, since we're down to just a couple minutes?
Sure.
You know, what is something that's really important, and I think you shared a lot that is, but what is the one most important thing that you would like to share with the citizens, and maybe for those who might be coming in?
I would share that City Council and the members that work within City Council and within City Hall do their utmost on a daily basis to represent and to serve the citizens of Buckhannon in the best that they know how. They do it on a daily basis under stressful conditions, and I want the citizens to realize when they see them out on the streets that they should say thank you, or just say hi, or if they're out in your yard and they're digging, give them some water.
Right.
You don't need to be scared of our city employees. And you talk about friendliness. Most of our city employees, if they see you on the street, they're going to say hi to you, even if they're in the middle of working.
Well, I walked in here this evening, and would you like a cup of coffee or something? You know,
Yes.
are you warm enough? They were just very, very cordial. So
I want them to know that the city's also looking at providing the best they can for their citizens as far as safety. We're looking at fire and police issues right now, and we feel that that's one of the most important. But something I do want to make sure everybody understands, the uniqueness of 2016. Besides the election year, that is our bicentennial year for the city of Buckhannon.
that is coming up.
200 years
Of Buckhannon.
That is amazing stuff. And we are going, this city is going to go all out. We're going to go so red, white, and blue, you're not even going to believe it.
Oh, this is awesome.
It's going to be I want a 1976 type of bicentennial. I remember that when I was a kid.
That'd be great.
It was a year long, too. We're looking at doing that.
So there's going to be several things going on.
Absolutely.
And you're also, I know, going to have a July 4th celebration.
We are.
At
with
Jawbone,
fireworks.
is that correct?
That's right. We'll have it at Jawbone, and the fireworks will be from downtown, so you'll be able to see them from anywhere downtown.
So there's a lot of new things happening, and a lot of things that are going to happen.
Yes,
And
yes.
I hope that if you're watching this evening, you have a little better understanding of what goes on with the city, a little bit more knowledge of who our mayor is and how he got here, and the fact that he was put in this position really not by choice. That's not
By
what you
choice.
want to do. But I think we need to say thank you, because I do feel that you have made every effort to make folks feel comfortable and welcome to come to City Council and to be a part of Buckhannon. So I want to thank you on behalf of the citizens. And folks, we're going to come back and do another session probably in the next week or so. We're going to do several talking about some of the things
Yes.
going on with the citizens and the organizations and how the city fits into all of this and how we work together. So I thank you for joining us for Community Spotlight. Thank you, Mayor Edwards, for joining us. And until next time, I'm Carol Long. Hope you have a nice evening.